In the hidden corners of Texas, behind the heavy doors of the state's toughest prisons, a group of men operates with a sense of purpose few can comprehend. These aren't just any men. They belong to the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, a group known for its brutal control and fierce loyalty. This brotherhood isn't bound by the law of the land. Instead, they create their own rules, their own code, and anyone who crosses it rarely escapes unscathed. Today, we delve into the lives of the 10 most feared leaders and members of this secretive and powerful group. Each name carries with it a story of absolute control and a level of influence that reaches far beyond prison walls. As we explore their rise to power, we'll uncover the web of fear they've spun, a web that has entangled so many, leaving behind a trail of scars and silence. This is not just a list, it's a journey into the darker side of Texas, a place where power and fear meet, where every decision is a calculated move in a game where there are no winners. Number 10. Virgil Barfield. Virgil Barfield's rise within the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, ABT, marked him as one of the most dangerous individuals in the gang's history. Born and raised in Houston's Heights neighborhood, Barfield's early life seemed unremarkable until he was drawn into the world of crime. His affiliation with the ABT began as he sought power and protection within the ruthless world of Texas prisons. Barfield's first significant act as a prospect for the ABT occurred in March 1985. He was tasked with eliminating Calvin Massey, an order that would solidify his standing within the gang. The attack was brutal and merciless. Barfield attacked Massey with a blade, inflicting 42 wounds. The ferocity of the act was captured on video, leaving little doubt about the cold-blooded nature of the crime. This footage would later play a crucial role in Barfield's conviction, as prosecutors used it to secure a life sentence for him. The severity of the attack and the calculated manner in which it was executed showcased Barfield's dedication to the ABT and his willingness to commit extreme acts of violence to prove his loyalty. One of the early wars the Aryan Brotherhood Texas waged was against the Mandingo Warriors, a predominantly black gang. The conflict was so intense that it nearly wiped out the Mandingo Warriors within the Texas prison system. Barfield, being a committed member of the ABT, was involved in these violent power struggles, further cementing his reputation as a fearsome enforcer within the gang. As the years passed, Barfield's involvement with the ABT deepened. He became a feared figure within the prison system, known for his willingness to carry out orders without hesitation. His reputation was such that he spent 25 years in administrative segregation, a form of solitary confinement used for the most dangerous inmates. During this time, Barfield was isolated from the general prison population, locked in a small cell for 23 hours a day, with minimal human contact. This harsh environment was a reflection of the threat he posed to both inmates and prison staff. However, after years in solitary, Barfield made a surprising decision. He renounced his affiliation with the ABT. This act allowed him to be transferred back to the general population, a move that marked a significant change in his life. Despite this, his past actions and the violence he perpetrated continued to cast a long shadow over his life. Barfield is currently serving his life sentence in Ferguson Unit, a maximum security prison in Texas. Number 9. Larry Slick Max Bryan. Larry Slick Max Bryan is a key figure in the ABT, who epitomizes the violent and ruthless nature of the gang he has long been associated with. Known for his leadership and unwavering commitment to the gang's strict code, Bryan's history is a stark reminder of the brutality that characterizes the ABT's operations. Born and raised in Texas, Bryan's criminal journey began early in life, but it was in the harsh environment of the Texas Department of Corrections that he found his calling within the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. Bryan, known as Slick to his peers, joined the ABT in 1991 while serving a sentence for substance-related offenses. Inside the prison walls, he quickly proved his worth, showing an aptitude for leadership and an uncompromising loyalty to the gang's principles. Over time, Bryan climbed the ranks, eventually becoming one of the 5 generals who governed the ABT's activities across Texas. These generals, forming a council known as the Wheel, wielded significant power, making decisions that could seal the fate of both members and rivals alike. Bryan's rise to power within the ABT was marked by a series of violent acts that solidified his position as a leader who demanded absolute obedience. The gang's code was clear. Orders from superiors were to be executed without question, with failure often resulting in severe consequences. This was a world where loyalty was earned through bloodshed, and Bryan's tenure was no exception. Under Bryan's command, the ABT engaged in a wide range of criminal activities, including substance trafficking, extortion, and organized violence. The gang's operations were meticulously planned and executed, often involving the brutal enforcement of discipline within its own ranks. One particularly chilling example of this was the gang's practice of punishing members who violated its rules by branding them with a blowtorch or administering fatal consequences. Bryan's role in these decisions underscored his willingness to maintain order through extreme measures. Despite being incarcerated for much of his adult life, Bryan continued to exert influence over the ABT's operations. Even from within the confines of prison, he managed to orchestrate the gang's activities, using smuggled cell phones and coded language to communicate with his subordinates on the outside. His ability to manage and direct the gang's affairs from behind bars made him a formidable leader, one who was deeply entrenched in the organization's criminal network. In 2012, Bryan's criminal career took a significant turn when federal authorities launched a massive crackdown on the ABT. This operation, which resulted in the indictment of 34 gang members, including Bryan, was led by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF. The charges against Bryan were extensive, including racketeering, conspiracy, and directing acts of violence from within the prison system. The indictment painted a grim picture of Bryan's role in the ABT, highlighting his involvement in numerous violent acts, including the elimination of rivals and the enforcement of the gang's brutal code of conduct. One particularly gruesome incident that detailed Bryan's dangerous personality is the punishment of a member who had breached the gang's rules. The member was tortured, and his body was disfigured as a warning to others. Another case involved the execution of a man suspected of disloyalty, who was first beaten, then subjected to a gruesome final act that ended his life. These incidents, among others, demonstrated Bryan's ruthless approach to leadership, where fear and violence were tools to maintain control and ensure loyalty. Bryan's legal troubles culminated in 2012 when he pleaded guilty to charges of racketeering in a bid to avoid a life sentence. His plea was part of a broader federal strategy to dismantle the ABT by targeting its leadership and isolating them from their criminal networks. During his sentencing, Bryan was visibly aged from years of incarceration, stood before the court as a symbol of the gang's enduring yet diminished power. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison, effectively ensuring that he would spend the remainder of his life behind bars. He is currently serving his sentence in a federal prison. However, the exact name of the prison where he is being held is not publicly available. Number 8. Stephen Walter Stainless Cook. Stephen Walter Cook, widely known by his alias Stainless, is a notorious figure within the ABT. Born in the mid-1960s, Cook grew into one of the most feared and influential members of this criminal organization, leaving a trail of violence and crime across Texas. Cook was a high-ranking general within the ABT, a position that afforded him significant power and control over both the gang's internal operations and its external criminal activities. As a general, Cook was responsible for enforcing the gang's rules and maintaining discipline among members. This often involved ordering or personally participating in violent acts against those who violated the gang's code or posed a threat to its interests. His authority extended beyond the prison walls. One of the most significant incidents involving Cook occurred on September 22, 2008, when he ordered the brutal beating of a prospective ABT member at his home in Tomball, Texas. The prospect was severely beaten by Cook and 11 other ABT members for violating gang rules, resulting in serious injuries, including an orbital blowout fracture. This incident highlighted Cook's ruthless approach to maintaining order within the gang and his willingness to use extreme violence to enforce compliance. In another notorious case, Cook was involved in the 2008 manslaughter of Scott Freeman, also known as Arizona, in Liberty County, Texas. Freeman, a member of a rival ABT faction, was shot 6 times with a .45 caliber weapon in a dispute over recruitment efforts. This manslaughter, orchestrated by Cook and fellow ABT member David Jason Michaels, underscored the deadly rivalries within the gang and Cook's role in eliminating threats to his power. Stephen Cook's criminal activities eventually caught up with him, leading to his arrest and subsequent prosecution. On March 16, 2012, Cook pleaded guilty to racketeering aggravated assault for his role in the 2008 beating of the ABT prospect. He was sentenced to 87 months in federal prison, with the sentence running concurrent with a life sentence on May 3, 2012. This life sentence was related to Cook's involvement in the Freeman homicide. Cook is currently serving his sentence in a federal prison. However, the specific location of the prison where Cook is held has not been disclosed publicly. This lack of detailed information is often due to security concerns and the nature of his involvement with the Aryan Brotherhood. Number 7. Michael Lynn Rogers. Michael Lynn Rogers, known within the ranks of the ABT as Texas Mike, carved a dangerous path through the criminal underworld, marked by his ruthless actions and feared reputation. Rogers, a high-ranking figure in the ABT, was recognized as the second-in-command of the gang in the North Texas region. His influence and authority within the gang made him a significant figure, feared by both members of the ABT and those outside the gang. His story took a particularly dark turn in July 2016, when a violent encounter at his home in West Dallas ended in a horrific act that would seal his fate. Alberto Gonzalez, a 34-year-old man who was not affiliated with the Aryan Brotherhood, made the fatal mistake of visiting Rogers' home to purchase illicit substances. The situation quickly escalated when Rogers accused Gonzalez of stealing his wallet, which reportedly contained $600. This accusation sparked a chain of events that highlighted the ruthless nature of Rogers and his associates. Witnesses later testified that Rogers, fueled by anger and suspicion, led a brutal assault on Gonzalez. Alongside other gang members present at the house, Rogers subjected Gonzalez to unimaginable violence. The attack began with beatings and escalated to a level of cruelty that shocked even seasoned law enforcement officers. Rogers and his associates used various objects, including a hammer, a machete, and a power drill, to inflict severe harm on Gonzalez. The victim was not only physically assaulted, but also subjected to humiliating and dehumanizing treatment, reflecting the violent methods the Aryan Brotherhood employed to instill fear and maintain control. One of the most disturbing aspects of this crime was the use of a power drill by Rogers, who drilled multiple holes into Gonzalez's head, chest, and abdomen. This act of extreme violence was a grim demonstration of the lengths to which Rogers would go to enforce the gang's code. The attack left Gonzalez in a state of unimaginable suffering before he ultimately succumbed to his injuries. After Gonzalez was terminated, Rogers and his accomplices attempted to cover up their crime. They disposed Gonzalez's body by placing it in a toolbox and transporting it to a remote pond near Irving, Texas. There, they set the body on fire, further demonstrating their callous disregard for human life. Despite their efforts to conceal the crime, law enforcement quickly connected the dots, leading to the arrest and prosecution of those involved. During his trial, Rogers downplayed his role in the crime, and despite his attempts to evade responsibility, the evidence against Rogers was overwhelming. Witnesses, including Collier, who had struck a plea deal, provided detailed accounts of the events that transpired at Rogers' home. These testimonies painted a vivid picture of the terror Gonzalez endured and Rogers' central role in orchestrating the violence. Rogers' defense argued that the investigation had been flawed, claiming that law enforcement had focused too narrowly on Rogers as the primary perpetrator. However, the jury saw through these arguments, and Rogers was convicted of capital crimes. The conviction carried an automatic sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that Rogers would spend the rest of his days behind bars. Rogers' conviction was a crucial victory for law enforcement in their ongoing battle against organized criminal enterprises like the Aryan Brotherhood. The impact of Rogers' actions extended beyond the courtroom. The fear and intimidation that the Aryan Brotherhood instilled in the community were palpable during the trial. Jurors expressed concern for their safety, prompting the presence of more than 15 bailiffs in the courtroom to ensure their security. Number 4. Charles Lee Jive Roberts. Charles Lee Jive Roberts, a high-ranking general in the ABT. Charles was born in Beaumont, Texas. Roberts became one of the most feared leaders within the ABT, a violent prison gang that originated in the early 1980s. Roberts, known by his alias Jive, was a senior leader in the ABT, holding the title of General, which placed him among the top echelons of the gang's hierarchy. As a general, Roberts had significant influence over the gang's operations, both inside and outside of prison. His role involved overseeing various criminal activities, including narcotics trafficking, violent assaults, and homicides, all conducted to maintain the gang's dominance and control over its members and rivals. Roberts' criminal record is an evidence to his dangerous personality. In 2011, Roberts admitted to ordering the terminations of 6 individuals on behalf of the ABT, solidifying his reputation as one of the most ruthless members of the gang. These manslaughters were part of a broader conspiracy to enforce the gang's rules, eliminate rivals, and punish those who were perceived as threats to the ABT's operations. In November 2012, federal prosecutors launched a massive crackdown on the ABT, resulting in the indictment of 36 gang members, including Roberts. On May 10, 2013, Charles Lee Roberts pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit racketeering offenses under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. This plea made him the first ABT leader to strike a deal with prosecutors, allowing him to avoid the demise penalty. Despite his cooperation, the gravity of his crimes led U.S. District Judge Sim Lake to sentence him to 360 months, 30 years, in federal prison. Roberts was also sentenced to 5 years of supervised release following his prison term. Given his advanced age and failing health, this sentence was effectively a life sentence. During his sentencing, Roberts, shackled and visibly resigned, told the court, "I am done. I am fixin' to be taken out of the game. I have pulled the wagon as far as I can." His request to be placed in a prison with medical facilities highlighted his acknowledgement that his time as a feared leader was over. Roberts is currently serving his sentence in a federal prison with medical facilities, ensuring that he remains incarcerated for the remainder of his life. Number 3. James Francis Skits Samsel. James Francis Skits Samsel is a prominent figure within the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, ABT. Born in 1964, Samsel's criminal career is marked by a long history of involvement in organized crime, particularly within the ABT, where he rose to a position of considerable power. Samsel held the rank of general in the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, specifically serving as the Region 3 General, a title indicating significant authority within the gang's hierarchical structure. In December 2012, federal investigators began monitoring Samsel after receiving a tip that he was staying at a motel in Cleveland, Texas, with a significant quantity of crystal methamphetamine. Surveillance revealed that Samsel was deeply involved in meth distribution, conducting substance transactions that were carefully documented by federal agents. In January 2013, Samsel was involved in a high-profile substance transaction where he sold methamphetamine to a confidential informant in a Walmart parking lot in Conroe, Texas. The undercover operation, which culminated in Samsel selling a quarter-pound of meth for $4,800, provided federal agents with the evidence needed to move in for an arrest. When law enforcement attempted to apprehend Samsel, he led officers on a high-speed chase, during which he desperately threw baggies of meth out of his car window in an attempt to destroy evidence. However, he was eventually captured and charged with possession with the intent to distribute a controlled substance, a serious offense that would add to his already extensive criminal record. Samsel's arrest marked a significant moment in the federal crackdown on the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas. In February 2013, he was named in a sweeping federal indictment alongside several other high-ranking ABT members. The indictment charged Samsel and his co-defendants with engaging in racketeering activity, which included acts of human slaying, robbery, arson, abduction, and substance trafficking. The case against Samsel and the ABT was part of a broader federal effort to dismantle the gang's leadership and operations. On October 7, 2014, Samsel was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Number 2. James Byrd. James Byrd is a notorious figure within the ABT. Born around 1978, Byrd's criminal history is marked by extreme violence, sadistic acts, and unwavering loyalty to the ABT. Byrd's affiliation with the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas began during his time in federal prison, where he quickly climbed the ranks due to his brutal methods and dedication to the gang's cause. His rise within the ABT saw him become an outside major for Region 2, a position that placed him in charge of overseeing gang activities across a vast area that included Dallas, Fort Worth, Wichita Falls, and Hillsborough. Byrd's role made him one of the highest-ranking ABT members outside of prison, responsible for coordinating criminal enterprises and maintaining discipline within the gang. Byrd's criminal record is littered with heinous acts that underscore his dangerous personality and deep-seated commitment to the ABT's violent ideology. In one particularly gruesome incident, Byrd stabbed a man 37 times, leaving him for dead. These acts of violence were not random, but were often carried out to enforce gang rules or settle disputes within the ABT. Byrd's eyelids were even tattooed with the ABT logo, a permanent display of his allegiance to the gang. One of the most chilling crimes attributed to Byrd involved the abduction and assault of Lovick Halden Stikelether III, a former ABT member who had fallen out of favor with the gang. In February 2014, Byrd ordered ABT members to abduct Stikelether and bring him to a residence in Tarrant County. There, Byrd subjected Stikelether to a brutal interrogation, during which he kicked him, pointed a gun at him, and stabbed him twice in the shoulders. To further drive home his point about the consequences of disloyalty, Byrd dabbed a piece of bread in Stikelether's blood, ate half of it, and forced Stikelether to eat the other half. This sadistic ritual was meant to reinforce the idea that the Brotherhood came before all else and that betrayal would not be tolerated. This act of cannibalistic violence was meant to demonstrate his dominance and loyalty to the gang, and it became one of the most infamous stories associated with his name. Byrd's criminal activities eventually caught up with him. In August of an unspecified year, he was convicted of abducting and assault by a Tarrant County jury. His crimes, particularly those connected to his leadership role within the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, led to a 50-year prison sentence in a Texas state prison. This sentence was seen as a significant victory for law enforcement, as Byrd was considered one of the most dangerous and influential members of the ABT. Today, Byrd is currently serving his sentence in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, TDCJ, where he has been placed in solitary confinement due to his high-ranking position within the ABT and the threat he poses both inside and outside of prison. His confinement cuts off his communication with other gang members significantly reducing his ability to direct criminal activities. Number 1. Bobby Adams. Bobby Adams is a founding member of the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, ABT, emerged as one of the most dangerous figures within the gang's notorious ranks. Born and raised in Houston, Texas, Adams grew up in a challenging environment, surrounded by poverty and hardship. His rebellious nature and inclination toward crime began early, setting him on a path that would eventually lead to a lifetime behind bars. In 1981, Adams co-founded the ABT. Adams, known as B.A., Adams quickly rose through the ranks of the gang, earning a reputation for his ability to carry out tasks with precision and discretion. His talent for staying under the radar while engaging in illicit activities made him a valuable asset to the ABT, solidifying his position as one of the highest-ranked soldiers within the organization. The ABT, under Adams's influence, operated with a code of silence and loyalty, which initially made them a formidable force. They prided themselves on their ability to handle business without drawing unnecessary attention, a characteristic that B.A. exemplified. His involvement in the gang's operations included orchestrating violent assaults and coordinating illegal activities, all while maintaining a low profile that kept law enforcement at bay for years. However, as time passed, the values and structure of the ABT began to deteriorate. The younger generation of gang members, according to Adams, lacked the discipline and discretion that had once defined the organization. This shift led to increased chaos both within the prison walls and outside, as members sought to advance their status through reckless actions. Adams, now older and disillusioned, watched as the gang he had helped build descended into disarray, with members turning on each other and betraying the very principles that had once united them. Adams's disenchantment with the ABT grew to the point where he made the unprecedented decision to distance himself from the gang. At 54 years old, serving a life sentence as a habitual criminal, Adams saw no reason to remain affiliated with a group that no longer upheld the values he once believed in. His decision to leave the gang was a bold move, as the ABT was known for its strict code against desertion, often punishing such acts with severe consequences. Despite his departure from the gang, Adams's past continued to haunt him. His criminal history, marked by a series of violent offenses, had already sealed his fate. Adams had been convicted of multiple crimes, including armed robbery, and his involvement in the ABT's operations only added to his notoriety. His life sentence, handed down due to his status as a habitual offender, ensured that he would spend the rest of his days behind bars. Adams is currently serving his sentence at a prison unit in Huntsville, Texas, a place that has been his home for nearly his entire adult life.